Hi, this is Tim from UK Home Gym, your home for UK specific independent home gym tips and advice. And today I'm going to talk to you about getting strong at home in a home gym and 5 things that may be holding you back. These are mistakes that I see other people making in their home gyms, and I see myself making them. I catch myself making them, or I've caught myself making them in the past. And I think if you can sort of wipe them out, then you're more likely to achieve your strength goals in the future. So the first sort of mistake that I often see people making, and that I've made myself, is sort of getting stuck in this sort of trap of trying to do too much. Now, if you have a strength goal, it is more likely than not to revolve around a compound lift. It's something like, I want to be able to deadlift a certain amount. I want to be able to squat a certain amount. I want to be able to overhead press a certain amount. I want to be able to bench press a certain amount. It's less likely to be revolving around an isolation lift. Um, I think that home gyms are really, they really excel for isolation, for doing isolation stuff, because stuff that you can get into a home gym, particularly if your budget is low, particularly if your space is restricted, they really, they lend themselves a lot to sort of very minimal setups, but not a minimalist setup in terms of a strength training minimalist setup, more in terms of uh, you know, uh, a, a bodybuilding or sort of a hypertrophy setup. So a lot of dumbbells, loadable dumbbells, are really great for a minimal home gym, and adjustable bench, really great for a home gym. Really great is another, like a DIY cable setup. That's a really great thing. But these are not really things that you think of when it comes to sort of building strength for the compound lifts. Um, if that's how you started off your home gym journey, you probably have a lot of that kind of equipment in your home gym, and you're sort of, rather than doing the compound lifts or stuff that will sort of help you progress on the compound lifts, you tend to sort of gravitate back towards doing that, and you spend too much time and too much effort, and then have to spend a lot of recovery from doing, a lot of those kind of exercises. So, the way many people start off their home gym journey often sort of dictates the way they, progress with it. So, if you have, like I have, really sort of tried to zoom in on strength rather than hypertrophy, I see that happens a lot, that people get sort of stuck in these little holes of, well, I need to do my, I need to do my, my flies or something like that. I need to do my incline curls and stuff like that. Well, if your goal is pure strength in the compound lifts, maybe not. So, maybe ask yourself some questions about your equipment. The second one, this really is very pertinent to me, is when you are in your home gym, you're working on your own there. The You really have no one to go to in terms of looking for, feedback in terms of your form. And if you are trying to build, strength, then your form is so important. You really, really do need some kind of feedback. And if you are in like a commercial gym, I'm not saying that, people are kind of standing around saying, giving you feedback all the time. However, you do have resources there. There may be experienced lifters. There may be people who you get to know in the gym who can sort of, give you pointers and give you advice if you ask them. There are personal trainers there sort of on hand. Maybe you just sort of think, well, next time I go in, I'm just going to have a brief session with a personal trainer, see if they can help me improve my form a little bit. You don't have all of those resources at home, and it's not quite the same to try and do that with like someone like an online coach. Now, you can get around that, and you can sort of coach yourself a little bit, but how you need to do that is be quite sort of consistent with it, and um, start filming yourself doing your compound lifts. and try and do that as much as you can. Now, it can be really annoying, and you be like, oh, I don't want to set up a camera, I don't want to set up a tripod and do all of these kind of things. But I feel like, anytime I've done it, anytime I've taken taken the time to do it, it's always paid me back because I've always looked at it and thought, right, well, I'm not going deep enough on that squat, or the bar isn't sitting in the right place on that squat, or I don't really like my form coming up on that deadlift. Oh, I don't really like the way I'm doing that overhead press. You can be very critical of yourself, and it's quite good. And I really like that. So, you know, the best way to do it is really to be quite strict about that when you're going to do your compound lifts, particularly heavy sets. Um, you know, check check your form, look back at it, and take the time to set up a camera and do that. Even if it's just your phone. Um, Really great to be able to look at that and be self-critical about it. The next one I think that is a very easy trap to fall into when you are training at home for strength, and that's overtraining. Now, when you have to go to the effort of going to a commercial gym and you have to wait for ages to get onto the squat rack or whatever, um, there are sort of restrictions pulling you back from being able to overtrain quite so much. But when everything's there and it's all set up all the time, basically, if your barbell is just sitting there on the squat rack and your J cups are all set up for a squat, and you just sort of walk past it and several times a day and think, well, maybe I could just get a couple of sets in here or something like that. It's very easy to then fall into the trap because it's right next to you and because it's right there all of the time of overtraining. And I think that, that is a problem that many home gym owners face. If you own a home gym, if you've gone to all the trouble of setting up a home gym, you're probably the kind of person who's very determined and very sort of focused. So I think that people with home gyms often do end up falling into the overtraining trap. And if you don't get enough recovery, you're not going to be able to build up your strength. Um, the next mistake this really is pertinent to me, but I'm sure it's pertinent to a lot of other people as well. And that is sort of getting into a rut and hitting plateaus and how you deal with it. So, if you've got a strength goal, you're trying to build up to a certain number, a certain amount of weight on the bar. Sometimes you just hit this plateau, you hit a number, and you just cannot push beyond it. And every time you try to go beyond that number, you fail. Or maybe you pick up very like niggling little injuries, little tendonitis things in your shoulder, in your elbow joint and stuff like that. Maybe these things are starting to derail you or push you back. Now, what I tend to do in that kind of situation is to look around at the equipment that I've got. And that's where it helps to have just a bit of diversity in your setup. So before I was talking about, well, what a minimalist kind of setup would look like. I don't advocate for minimalism in terms of your home gym. I think that, you need a lot of different versatile equipment. I've made a video about this quite recently. Versatile equipment is really good. So when I get in because as I was saying, like a lot of the lifts I'm trying to get stronger at are compound lifts. So when I get in a rut with those, you know, compound lifts always barbell lifts, right? Well, maybe if I'm in a rut or if I'm feeling some little bit of tendonitis somewhere or something like that, maybe I can switch it up. And instead of getting frustrated and abandoning a lift or something like that, maybe I switch it up. Maybe I switch to some kind of dumbbell variation. And I've got the loadable dumbbell handles there. I've got the same weight plates. Maybe just switching up to dumbbell version for a while. Maybe that helps a little bit. I've also got a Swiss bar. Maybe that helps a little bit. I've got a trap bar as well. So maybe that helps. And maybe just switching, as I said, from the barbell, the standard barbell there, to the Swiss bar, and just having a neutral grip instead of the normal grip that you would have. Maybe that helps in some particular lifts, and maybe if you don't have all of those different equipment things, maybe you can do like a seated version instead, or um, try and find a different way to do the same lift. I think that sometimes just taking a fresh approach and sort of building up from a lower weight back to closer to where you are, sometimes helps. I mean, for me, it really helped on. I'll give an example. It really helped when I was, I got sort of stuck in a rut with my bench press, and then I started experimenting with a wider grip, with just using the same equipment, but with a wider grip. And I went right back down in terms of weight, and I just built back up again. And then eventually I found that I actually enjoyed that wider grip a bit more, and that, I could actually go a bit heavier on the wider grip than I could with just the more sort of standard grip. So, sometimes it pays to sort of experiment and see what you can do in terms of equipment and variations. And the last mistake that I find, that this really surprises me, and yeah, it really surprised me. A lot of people do not track their progress. They don't write down. They don't keep a log of what they do in the gym. It's all in their head. And particularly people with home gyms, they just seem to go in there and they're like, well, okay, I need to do this at this time of the week, but there's no written record of it. And I feel that you really need to keep as much detail as you possibly can on there. And in a way, I'm guilty of it myself, even though I'm sort of preaching this. Um, I often just write down the date, the weight, the type of exercise that I've done, and the amount of reps that I've done. It really helps to, just take the time to, log a little bit more detail in there, and sort of say how you're feeling about that lift. Did I struggle with it, or if I failed, to hit a particular rep goal, why did I fail? What was the factor that sort of stopped me from hitting that rep goal in that particular time? If there's any detail I can put down there, because I'm going to forget this over time. And when I'm sort of coming to sort of make decisions about, how my strategy for you know for hitting a strength goal, if I can go back and look at all the different bits of detail, all the data that I've sort of built up there, it can be very helpful in terms of trying to adjust my strategy. So, really keeping a record, I think, is so important. And it really shocks me, the amount of people who just don't seem to keep any kind of record, and just vaguely remember it all in their heads and expect to be able to hit, quite difficult strength goals. Anyway, I that's my list for today. I wonder if you have anything that you think maybe you could add in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. If there are any mistakes that you think have sabotaged your own home gym strength goal targets, please let me know in the comments below. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. That really helps me to grow the channel. Please check out our website. That's ukhomegym.com. And I'll see you next time on UK Home Gym.